Welcome, everyone. Simon Rosenberg, Hopium Chronicles. Once again, here with the proud, plucky patriots of the Hopium community. And for those who will also be watching this and listening and/or listening on YouTube, the Hopium site itself, on Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. So, welcome, everyone. This is our almost every week gathering to sort of level set, take stock of where we are in this ferocious fight against Donald Trump and his agenda of sabotage, plunder, and betrayal. And I think that I start to every week, I try to kind of give you my sense from where I think we are. And this week, I want to repeat some of the things that we've discussed, but also explore new things we've been talking about over the last few days. And number one, I think that we are in this place where two things can be true at the same time. He is doing incredible harm to the country. That's become more evident in recent weeks. He's breaking things that will be difficult, if not impossible, to repair. And we must continue to act with great urgency to mitigate the damage and to win back power. Number one. Number two, Trump the brand, Trump the project, Trump the snake oil salesman, Trump the used car salesman, Trump the big blubbery baby man. That the brand of Trump is struggling, is failing, is losing control of the nation's discourse. We had polling this week to confirm the polls that we didn't have much polling this week. We won't get much polling in August, but the polling that we do have confirms this sort of steady downward trajectory he's been on now, really since April, but particularly since the beginning of June. In the Economist YouGov poll this week, he still was 14 points down, 41.55 in job approval. He had lost more than about 40 points with 18 to 29-year-olds, over 25 points with Hispanic voters, even more with independent voters. He's now underwater with people making under $100,000 a year, which that was supposed to be his superpower, is to reach down into the working class. He's now underwater and dropped significantly with those voters. His brand is eroded. He's eroded. He is weaker today than he was when the first week in office. And this is before, sort of the ugliest parts of his agenda really kick in. And so I think that we have to take solace in recognizing that we could be in a very different place right now. Donald Trump could be popular. The country could love him. He could have the support of the people behind him. We would be in a very different place today if that was the case. That's not the case. The good news is that on every major piece of his agenda that matters, he's lost the support of the American people. On things like inflation and prices, which is the number one issue for voters, he's down 25, 30 points in a place of danger, right? He's in a place of danger as a politician. I never really thought he would get below 40% in polling. I just felt that that was sort of his floor, but he's been getting under 40 in polls. We had a UMass poll this week, a credible, serious poll, where he was at 38, 58, which has also been replicated in other polls. And so what is also true, though, about the polling and the data is that even though there are some polls showing our favorability down, in the direct head-to-head against them, which is what matters, right? Which is that because it's a choice between us and them in our system, we now have advantage in party ID, right? More people see themselves as Democrats than Republicans. That was not true at the beginning of the year. That was not true during the election either. At the end of the election, we have now a 2, 3, 4 point advantage in what's called a generic ballot, which is which party will you vote for Congress next year. That's meaningful and real. It's not sufficient. We need to keep growing, right? We're not where we want to be, but we're ahead of them and beating them. And that's evident. And then third, the other kind of measure, and a measure that I think is very important, is enthusiasm. We have like a 20-point enthusiasm gap over them right now. And so, this idea that somehow the Democratic Party is sort of stumbling and in the dark and we've lost our way and we're in trouble, that just isn't true. I mean, it isn't true. I mean, we have seen this in the special elections and the local elections we've had where we've overperformed expectations. We won big in Wisconsin. We won big in Omaha. Nebraska, we've had some really important special election victories. We had a big overperformance in Rhode Island last night. And the two big general elections that we're following, Virginia and New Jersey, which will be seen as bellwethers. The New York race, no matter what happens, won't be seen as a national bellwether, although Mandami seems to have a comfortable lead there right now. And Donald Trump today somehow miraculously indicated that he may support Cuomo, which of course would doom Cuomo and make sure that Mandami wins the election in New York. I'm sure Trump's approval rating in New York has got to be lower than 25%. I don't know this off the top of my head, but my guess would be. But Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger have high single digit leads in their races and are in strong positions, raising lots of money, and they're very good candidates. So, I know that there's a lot of negative chatter about us right now and sense of disappointment, but we're doing better in the actual real measures of party strength than is, I think, widely understood or at least widely recognized. And I think we should be heartened. We could be behind, right? We could be behind. He could be popular. That's not what's happened. And I think for all the work that all of you done, whether the fundraising you've done for and donations you've given to candidates, the phone calls you've been making, the door knocking you've been doing, the postcards you've been writing, the protests that you've been going to, all of this has collectively added up to this moment that I described in the last couple of days in my own writing, where I think that we've seen this step by step. We've talked here about building the ferocious opposition, and for this community to be leaders and helping teach our elected leaders what's expected of them now in this time of national crisis. And we saw it with the town halls that have hundreds and hundreds of town halls that have been done all over the country. We've seen it in the millions of people protesting. We saw it just a few days ago where, the Democrats forced the Republicans to vote to subpoena the Epstein files out of the Department of Justice. The House Republicans voted for that. An incredible victory for the Democrats. We've now seen, though, I think where all of this work that we've all done this year and this effort that all of you have been involved in whatever way you have been, in building this ferocious opposition, we've started hitting a higher gear. And I think what was interesting today, and I wrote about this higher gear over the last couple of days, and I think you've seen it around the redistricting battle, which is now a national battle, for whatever reason, that this was the thing that kind of galvanized the Democrats to fight harder, to reach higher, to have more ambition in the way that we're punching back against Trump and his aggression. It's happened. And you never know, as I wrote today, you never know when these things are going to happen. You never know when that bill you've been working on is going to pass. You never know when that candidate you've loved is going to break out. You never know when a cause that you've championed forever all of a sudden becomes popular. You never know, but it won't happen unless you're fighting every day and you're putting your head down and grinding it out every day. These opportunities that we now have, where you've seen the Democratic Party really start, going into a higher gear, as is appropriate, as is necessary, right? We've seen this sort of happen in the last few days. And what's interesting is there's press coverage now sort of acknowledging this. And this is really important, right? Now, the Democratic Party looks strong and tough, and we're fighting, right? We're not weak and rolling over and sort of where are our leaders, right? That's not the cry right now. And this is really important because one of the things that we've talked about here a lot for months and months and months and months is how Trump sees, we have to understand how he sees politics. He sees politics as strong and weak, and winning and losing, and succeeding and failing, and heroes and villains. His agenda is secondary to that story, this fiction that he tries to weave for the country every day, the TV show that he produces out of the White House, and these stories that he tries to tell. And that as Nathan Heller discussed with us this week and in this amazing interview and the wonderful piece he wrote for the New Yorker, Trump has created this kind of national narrative, right? Where he's winning and he's strong and he's virile and he's 25 and he's, handsome and he's not wearing this girdle and wearing all the makeup, right? That there's this fictional story they're telling every day. And this narrative that he's making America great again, right? And this is the narrative that they tell every day in every way, that we're winning, we're strong. If you look at his Truth Social posts, almost every day now, he talks about America's the hottest country in the world. Everybody wants to come here, right? Everything's amazing, right? Like you got to come. We're hot. We're winning, And I think that we have to understand that because we have to compete in the way that we compete on issues. And we're going to talk about issues here in a second, his agenda in more detail. We have to learn how to compete more aggressively in the domain where he defines and gets his strength, because we have to take that away from him. Because if you take Trump being strong and winning and succeeding and being a hero, if you take that away, what's left is the ugliest political thing that we've ever seen and the most destructive agenda than any American president has ever pursued. And so we have to compete more aggressively in the domain of winning and losing, succeeding and failing, strength and weakness, and in heroes and villains. Because Donald Trump, let's be clear, he is weak, he's not strong. He is failing, he's not succeeding. Our country is losing, it is not winning, and he is a villain, a world-altering, historic Bond villain level villain. He is not a hero. And we have to do our part in our community to help us to extricate ourselves from these false stories that he weaves every day, and to recognize that the emperor does have no clothes, and that's the ugliest thing any of us could imagine in this case, right? And also that we are pulling the curtain back from the wizard. And I think that this process of unhooking yourself from their propaganda stream and from the right-wing noise machine, and sort of resetting, as we do here once a week and in our Hopium every day, is something that I hope all of you do in all of your communities the way that I do for you. You need to do for everybody else, because we need to free people up from the dark spell that he's cast on the country. And I think we're further along in that happening than I would have imagined at this point, to be honest. I think his tariffs were a catastrophic mistake that sort of undermined the central thing that brought the late voters to him, the kind of people that wandered into him in the end, which is that with Donald Trump, you get a better life, you get more money, you get success. Well, that he eroded that. He immediately raised prices on everybody on purpose. And it was like, wait a minute. Didn't you say you were going to like lower my prices and give me more opportunities and make me wealthier? And like, WTF, Donald? And I think that that severed a bond. It broke trust with him. And it's been essential to his decline as a political leader. I'm still stunned and amazed from a political standpoint that he's, tomorrow, Thursday, this week, he's going to implement and these dramatically escalated tariffs on Brazil and on India and on the EU and basically every major trading partner for us. And we're all of a sudden very quickly in the United States going to be paying more for everything very quickly. I mean, everything's going to cost more, very soon. And for what end? He told us that the exact opposite wasn't going to happen. And so, we are the solace that I have is that we could be actually in a far worse place right now than we are, believe it or not, politically. And that the gains that we've made, the struggles that he's had are necessary but not sufficient for what comes next, because there is no scenario where we get to the other side of Trump and MAGA without what's happening now happening, which is that his weakening and he's loosening his grip on the country. And we're going to be coming back here in September and having some titanic legislative battles that will continue to test his capacity to bamboozle and to keep his team together. We'll be talking more about that next week in our discussion. But let me go to the second part of the talk tonight, which is the thing we also talked about over the last few days, which is this idea of a national narrative, and that, as Nathan Heller talked to us about, this idea of the ambience of information, that it's possible that in 2024, one of the reasons that we did not have the election we all wanted to have was that Trump has sort of figured out how to game and this new information environment more than we have, and how to influence it and speak to it. And Nathan talks about the ambience of information. Please, if you haven't watched the interview, watch it. I won't go through it all tonight. Read his New Yorker article, which I think is a seminal piece of understanding, where he talks about how, Trump has this national narrative that he feeds in little pieces all day long, and he keeps, sorry about the camera, I'm not sure what's happening. And that he sort of plays into the ambient of information that for a lot of voters who don't get up every day thinking about politics that we do, right? They kind of bang into politics during the day on their social feeds, and where Trump had the biggest gains at the end of the election that helped him win. And I showed you the graphs on this stuff, the charts on this stuff today. I think it was today. Yeah. were the biggest social media consumers. Hispanics and young people are the people that kind of broke to him at the end. And they are the people who are disinterested. Tara McGowan, our good friend, calls them passive news consumers. The term Nathan uses that they sort of rub into news, meaning they're not seeking it, but they kind of bang into it. Trump sort of built a political and communications operation to seed that world of ambient information that sort of rubbed into people. And we've been operating off of a more traditional playbook of micro-targeting and not really seeding the national conversation, the national narrative. And I think this is one of the big learnings that we have, which is that we need to both position our party as strong and powerful and fighting and gritty and patriotic, number one. Number two, we need to tell a simple story about this moment in history, about who they are and who we are and what we want to do. And it has to be a story that you can touch and feel that we then play off of every day. And whether we're ever going to have a slogan, sorry for the camera, I don't know what's happening, whether we're going to have a slogan as powerful as Make America Great Again, where we're going to find our own version of that, restore the promise of America. People were debating it today in the Hopium chat. I'm not, I don't, I'm ecumenical. It's not up to me to make that decision. It's up to our political leaders. But we're going to have to, I think, reorganize the way we do communications and understand the sort of the way that information flows. We've figured out pieces of it, right, by building our own center left pro democracy media. You've seen our embrace of podcasting. I'm going to be having some people on talking about this continued information revolution in the next few days. But there's still, I think, this idea that one of the things we have to do together is tell a simple story and talk in narratives and not sound bites, talk in stories and not messages. Messages come after the story and narrative are set. We have to tell a story. And the story that I think the elements of that story, I think are, I said today three, but I'm going to add at least play around with a fourth. Number one is that his agenda is doing material harm to America and the American people, and that we need to mitigate the damage that he's doing and stop it. Number two is that he is attempting to end American democracy for all time and establish something like a dictatorship in the United States. He's abandoning the constitutional order. It's without question the greatest betrayal of America in all of our history, with no near peer, and that we have to be acting with great urgency. Three is that I think an area that I was writing about a few months ago more, but I will come back to it, is that he's making us weaker and we're less safe today. We are now isolated in the world. We've lost our core alliances. We are deeply reviled and hated by people for their treatment that we've given them over the tariffs in particular. We're driving people towards Russia and China and away from the United States. We're disabling huge elements of our soft power and our intelligence community and our ability to listen and see the world and be connected to the world. We're doing things that are making us less safe and less secure than we've ever been, or at least certainly, I joke, since the War of 1812, but certainly a long time, certainly, over prior to Woodrow Wilson, we've never been this alone in the world. And so I think that his agenda is doing material harm to the country, as we saw in the jobs report last week, and that caused him to, like an impulsive mad king, fire the statistician who runs the BLS. Number two is that he's abandoning he's a threat to our democracy and trying to establish a dictatorship and acting like a tyrant. And third is that he's leaving us less safe. And, we need to tell that story to the American people, that he's letting us down, that he's become a danger to everything that we care about here. Whatever the words are, I think those are the elements we have to tell. And then the rest of the story is what we're going to do and how we're going to fight, and that we're patriots and we're proud and we're plucky and we're going to go battle this guy, and that the grit and the fight is critical to the story, right? That we're not doing this because it's our job. We're doing this because we're proud patriots and we love our country, and this is a threat to our way of life, and that this is what we're going. So number one is that we're going to fight him, and then number two, we have to start rolling out the things that we want to do, and I've written about that today, and I wrote about it in our agenda project. Which, if you haven't checked in on that, you have an opportunity to weigh in on what you think the affirmative agenda should be for the Democrats. But I want to just end by saying tonight that what I think there's a big difference. I don't like the concept of messaging because messaging is ephemeral. It feels inauthentic, right? we need to have a story we're telling and we need to stick to it and we have to fucking believe it, right? It has to come from us. It has to be not poll tested and ad tested and concocted by a series of consultants. It's got to come from our heart and our love of country and our belief in the future and our optimism and our desire to make sure that our kids and our grandkids had the same opportunities or better than we had. And it's got to come from that. And it's got to be authentic and real. And what can be more real and authentic than coming from a place of love of country and patriotism of this amazing country, the greatest country that there's ever been, that's being betrayed in unprecedented ways. And I think that, for us going forward, I think that part of, what I want to think about is that if what Democrats can be saying now is that if we believe that Donald Trump's tariffs are raising prices, slowing the economy, doing incredible harm to our standing in the world, and therefore we want to rescind them. Number two, that we think his big ugly bill, by giving these huge tax cuts to wealthy people and corporations, is endangering the fiscal integrity of the United States. And therefore we want to rescind them. Or yes, or restore or get, yes, rescind those tax cuts. Number three, right? We think this attack on our healthcare system through the cutting of the ACA and Medicaid and Robert Kennedy's insane attack on vaccines, our public health system, the gutting of our biomedical research facility, that's making us less healthy and is endangering the health of the American people. And therefore, we're going to restore the funding and the programmatic ambition of all those things. We have a series of things that we can already say that we will do based on things that are happening now that create definition for us. I listed many of them today, but make up your own list, right? I mean, play with this stuff. I put this stuff out here like a sketch pad, right? You have the ability to comment and work on these things. I will add those things that I wrote today, into the agenda project, and I'll pull the agenda project back up so it's a little bit more visible so all of you guys can connect to it. But I think our job now is we know where we are. We know who he is, right? He's doing enormous harm to the country. He's trying to end American democracy and make himself a dictator. He's weakening the national security of this country and making us less safe than we've been in generations. And we are proud patriots who are not going to let that shit happen on our watch, and we're going to fight like hell. And we're going to, restore back the things that he's broken as best we can. And we're going to continue to fight what Democrats have always fought for, which is that we want opportunity for all in America. That's the core foundational value of our party, if there is anything, right? And we want a strong democracy. We want a strong nation that isn't being bullied by our adversaries and other big nations. We want all those things. It's not hard. This stuff isn't hard, but the people have to believe that we mean it and that we're fighting for it and that this matters to us and that we are going to fight for these things, like the way that we fight and that Donald Trump fights. And that's why what's happened with redistricting this week has been so important. Why this was the issue that kind of galvanized the Democratic family, that showed the grit and the fight and the determination. We're never going to really know, but it's happened. And we are stronger today. We are getting closer to building that ferocious opposition that we've been talking about here for months and months and months. We have made progress. We've gotten ahead of them in all the major electoral gauges. And Donald Trump, something also really significant has happened, is that people are starting to really feel the damage of his extremist, rancid agenda of sabotage, plunder, and betrayal. They're seeing the corruption taking place. They're feeling prices rise in their lives. They're seeing people get laid off from their jobs. Think he is hurting the country, and people are feeling it. And so, my friends, we have to keep our head down. I'm a grinder, right? I think you have to do a little bit every day. You got to keep moving the ball down the playing field every day. I don't really believe in spectaculars. Trump believes in spectaculars, right? Every day he's got this new thing that's going to restore his strength and his power and his connection to working class people. He's going to go solve the wars. It's all these big things. And these big things continue to fail, right? What we're doing, tortoise in the hare, whatever the analogy is, we're getting up this proud, plucky community of 150,000 Hopium optimists and patriots, right? we get up every day and we just do a little bit of work to make things better every day. I do my job at Hopium and writing this thing, keeping this community going. All of you make your calls, give your money, info war, and spread information around. Share Hopium to all your friends, anyone you've ever met. Encourage them to subscribe, right? But we are making progress. While we recognize that he is doing harm, we are also making real, meaningful progress in building the ferocious opposition that we've all wanted since the beginning of this year. So thank you, everyone here tonight, for your role in getting us to this place. This has been the work of millions, and it has to continue to be the work of millions more if we're going to continue to mitigate the damage, win back power, and put MAGA into the dustbin of history where it so desperately belongs. Thanks, everybody. It's great to be with all of you. Let me get to questions. And for those of you listening and watching on YouTube, if you want to hear these questions, you have to come back to the Hopium site because we cut off here in our recordings. And for those of you who've enjoyed this presentation tonight, please, subscribe, hit like, so more people, it gets into the algorithm. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and share this with everybody you know, and help grow this community and help bring this message to more people. Thanks, everybody. Let me get to questions.